to thank limitlessmotorsports.ca, Limitless Motorsports, for sponsorship for the STI build on season 2. We hope we can continue to do business with Limitless Motorsports, and thanks for the sponsorship, for the discounted parts. If you guys want to check out limitlessmotorsports.ca on Instagram or on their website, they have tons of awesome parts for your cars and people to talk to help you with your builds. So contact Limitless Motorsports if you're looking to do something like this to your ride. Welcome back to another Netfix original. In episode 2 on More Fuel, More Power, we will be installing all the fuel part of this season. So new fuel rails, new fuel lines, new fuel injectors, new fuel pressure regulator, and new fuel gauge. It's all gonna come right off of our hard lines to new flex lines basically the whole way. Stay tuned for more fuel. So if you watched episode 1 on season 2, you would have seen us remove the intake manifold without the wiring harness. Now we're at the stage, we're gonna remove our fuel lines so we have a nice clean area here, and look at how we're gonna be installing these new fuel lines.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
They make it hard for you to get your fingers in there.
Oh, come on. What the fuck?
Not even sure what they call this. I don't also know what this is. Some type of vacuum pot. So this is what it looks like with no fuel lines. We just have these 3 fuel lines right here. They're all hard lines. 2 of them have the little plastic retainer on them. And these wire and hose are actually potentially not on your vehicle. This is for our catch can, or air oil separator, I should say. And this is an extra power wire for the battery in the back for the airlift. And now we're gonna put new fuel. Okay, so we've unboxed all of our new fuel parts. We have our IAG fuel rails, Radium fuel pressure gauge, Turbosmart FPR 1200 pressure regulator. These pieces come with your fuel rail. We have 6 new fuel lines that are all a PTFE braided hose. There's 6 of them. A couple of vacuum lines and a bunch of fittings and a couple brackets. Basically, first thing we're gonna do, make sure you have everything that shows, and then we will be assembling our fuel rails on the bench and assembling our pressure regulator on the bench, because we're going to need to put some fittings in it and the fuel gauge on it, and same with on our fuel rail. So we'll get into that right now. We're going to start with our fuel pressure regulator. All right, so I just got some dielectric grease. This is just brake lube, technically. It's dielectric grease, synthetic, and a little O-ring pick. So don't forget to lube all your O-rings, because they come dry and they're going to fail fairly quickly if you don't put some lube on them. So first things first, for the fuel pressure regulators, what we're going to be assembling right now, we have the -6 fittings. These are the -8s, they're size larger, which will be going into a fuel rails. So we're going to take the O-rings off of our -6s. Try not to damage them or poke a hole in them. And we're just gonna work that all on it everywhere. Slide them back on. Doesn't need to be packed in there, just the entire O-ring needs to be moist. Because you know how we like it moist. I'm the grease guy. Okay, all of our O-rings are freshly lubed. On the regulator, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3. We got a vacuum and an adjustment. And there's also a little plug here, which we might need to remove for our fuel gauge. I'm gonna thread all of these in by hand until they can't go anymore. You don't want to over tighten these. You do have an O-ring in there sealing it, so it's not like a crush washer. Once they bottom out, just make them nice and a little bit snug, and then you're good. It's a 19 mil on these boys, because I can't really get a good grip on that to be able to tighten them. Looks like you can probably just hold on to it on these flat spots here. Just want it slightly tighter than your hand can hold the thing, in my opinion. Yeah, that's about as tight as they can go anyways. If you had some soft jaws for the vise, that'd be nice too. But this one's tight, but I use my body as leverage. And it's 3/16 for some reason, standard. Standard thread too. No, standard Allen key. And we're probably gonna put some sealant compatible for fuel on here. So, and then thread her in there and give her a little snug. Hey. Since we have the Turbosmart fuel regulator, it's not the Aeromotive fuel regulator, which is what they recommend or have it in their installation instructions. The holes on the bracket for your Turbosmart are a little wider than the holes that they give you on the bracket to mount it. So we just used a die grinder and slotted the holes a little bit closer together and put in some 1/4-inch nuts, because that's the only size I have. And we'll give her a test fit and see how she looks. Just put some PTFE high temperature thread sealant on our fuel gauge. Looks like the fuel gauge on this is gonna be very tight to the diaphragm here, but just we're gonna clear because it's tight right there, so we're just gonna give it a little bit more of a turn with a wrench. You could always put in like an elbow there if you want, which we might do in the future. Just right now, we don't have one. So with the bracket mounting your Turbosmart fuel regulator to the IAG mounting bracket, we just had to slot those holes a little bit, and then I put the entire bracket in a vise, tightened it just down a tiny bit to flatten it out, to bring it this way towards the outside of the car a little bit, just because you can see here the line between the regulator and your fuel. The brake line's kind of in the way. I mean, we can bend the brake line a little bit too, but just trying to make it so it didn't have to have a sharp bend because it's a very short hose and it's hard to bend a short hose. So that's what we did. That's how it sits. We think we like where it is. And once we hook up our hoses, we'll see how it works. I want to get digital. So now, once we're digital, we are going to build our fuel rail with our -8 fittings. O-rings are lubed. Same as on the fuel regulator, you just want to tighten these until they bottom out. Don't over tighten. It looks like we have 2 plugs for the bottom here. I'm not exactly sure what they use that bottom for. 22 millimeters or 7/8 for your larger fittings. Grip strength tighten. Once we get these installed, maybe we'll see if we can give them a little more. They'll probably be tight. They'll probably be tight enough like this. All right, so they give you new mounting bolts, 4 little O-rings, and I don't know, but I think these might be Teflon. In the instruction manual for your fuel rails, there is a plug in the bottom that you can install if you're not using fuel pulsation dampeners. We have not researched into fuel pulsation dampeners, so we are just putting the plugs in because obviously we don't have any fuel vibration pulsation dampeners. And then they have a specific sequence on actually torque tightening this properly. They say tighten it to your hand and then 3 full turns. I did not count that, but I just used my body as a rest. Nice long ratchet, and I feel like I can get it pretty tight. Those are not gonna leak, I'm guaranteeing you, as long as you're as strong as me and your sternum bones are as weak as mine. These are not Teflon, these are just a phenolic spacer. They live in the fuel rail like this, and this is where your mounting bolt goes through, which you can put in like that, and then you have your 4 O-rings, which go over this and hold everything together during assembly. I still recommend putting some lubricant on these in case when you're tightening it wants to turn, tear, or crack in the future. So just gives longer life to these, and that's what we're gonna do. Just before I forget, we're going to get an extension and some paper towel and just clean out where our O-rings or seals on our injectors were sitting. Just in case any crud got in there. And then we can just look and everything looks pretty good. Surgery. H2O. Okay, so these injector connectors can be a bit of a pain. Basically, we're gonna refilm this for you so we can show you all the troubles that we had and how to prevent those troubles. And we'll also just show you start to finish, quick as possible, how to replace these connectors with the injector dynamic connectors. I have a little tool here. It can go right in the big gap, and we drag it right along the terminal with a bit of pressure. And then just pull on your wires. You kind of just want to go along the terminal and do that, and it will pull back the little release tab. There's a little plastic tang in here you're pulling when you do it. And those pop out just like that. Now, we did that just to save ourselves about 3/8 of an inch. I'm gonna cut the wire right here. I'm gonna cut the wire right here. Now I can just pull these grommet seals off. We can push back this. I like just to keep this as long as possible because now once we put this back together, we're not going to see any wires. This will be right nice tight against the connector, the sheathing. Now, don't forget to put on your green seals. And they go in this direction, so you can crimp them on. next, we're going to strip our wires. I have some 22 gauge wire strippers here. We're just gonna take off about 3/8 of an inch. Just like that. Just quickly give these a little twist, just so that you keep your wire strands all in the same home. And there you're gonna use your special tool, crimper, and the new terminal. And this little terminal, we're gonna use the smallest crimp on it. I like to just put it in to where you want to crimp it, just like this. And now I'm gonna feed the wire in right about there, and then just crimp down. Always do your tug test. Crimp down. And tug test. Doesn't come apart. We're good. Now we're just gonna move these grommets up till they bottom out on your terminal. And I'm just gonna fold these tabs gently over. Just so they're kind of like an oval / circle, holding on to that seal. Like this. Now, the issue we ran into is when you crimp it, it bows it like that a little bit. You see this bow right here? So that makes it very stiff to try and put your terminal into the connector. If you can, you don't want to get too aggressive with it because these are very delicate, but you want to try and just bend it so it's straighter and doesn't have that bow in it. The straighter it is, the easier it's going to go in to your connector. Okay, and now I'm just gonna, this is a new technique I have never done before, but I like it, so I'm gonna keep doing it, and I'm gonna show you it. I just fill my little dielectric tube up with grease, and then I'm just gonna do a plunge and a plunge. And here's our new terminal. We're doing the ground wire towards the tab so that all of them are the same. I can't recall which way these were gonna go in. Let's just try that like that. You'll know which way they go, because yeah, see, if it goes this far fairly easily, you know that your orientation is correct. And then basically you just push them in. One's clicked already. Pull that sheathing back, make sure they're all the way in, and then this will push down pretty easily and click all the way in. If it's not gonna click very easily, you gotta try and work that again. And like I said, that bow caused us tons of trouble. It was very stiff in and out. As soon as we straightened it out, it went in like a glove. Hope that helps. Definitely helped us for our last two, and good luck. Unless we just got lucky in our kit, which we didn't actually need it, but they did give us one extra terminal and seal in case something went sideways. Here's our beautiful babies. That's an injector, dynamic injector right there for you. So there's a tiny little O-ring up there. That's one small O-ring. So they want us to pull those off and put lube on them? I would suspect so. I'm gonna put these right on their little card. I just like pulling off the O-rings because then you know you're getting lube around the whole thing. That is, as long as you don't damage it. These are extremely tiny O-rings up here. So the technique I do is I pinch it like this and pinch hard. And you can see how it's loosening right here. Now I can get in there without having to scrape at it. And off she comes. All right, we got all our O-rings nice and juicy. Juicy. Love it when I say it like that. Let's just see how these babies fit in here. I'm gonna assume those go like that. And just like that. Nice and gentle. Like that. All right. Let's go lay these bad boy in there. Six millimeter. All right, those are threading. Now just make sure that everything is sitting fairly even and then they're home. Need a light for that. Oh yeah, that looks good. So good, it might just not be right. And we're just gonna work these back and forth with our hands. Hand tight, turn it a little bit at a time. Gold on gold, baby. That's the same gold, because those are IAG TVGVs. TGV deletes, I should say. Haha. That feels good. Feels so good. Smooth on the way in. Oh, look at those nice connectors. Those pain in the ass connectors. Make sure your tape's not in your way like it was on our last one. So we're just going to torque our fuel rails to 14.1 foot-pounds. I'm actually doing it to 15 foot-pounds because I'm crazy like that. But we're just gonna go, evenly. Now we're gonna be feeling the torque. Beautiful. Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast. I like a beast. Beauty and a Beast. So we did put lube on the terminals themselves, but I like to put a little bit of lube inside along the plastic portion of the connector where the seal of the actual connector, not the seal of the terminals, but the seal of the connector goes. It makes it easy to pull apart in the future. This is a better view right here, people. Way better view right here. Just kind of right like this. Just like that. All around. And now we're just gonna plug these boys in. And that's not how it goes like this. It should just push in and click. Just like that. Listen for the click, listen for the clue. We put the mount for the Y on your fuel rail. Pretty certain that it's in a shitty spot, but right below your throttle body and the whole 9 yards. Right around there. Now we're just installing the hoses loosely, just to see how everything's gonna sit in here. Left bank, so the front of the car on the driver's side gets the 90 on one and the straight. 90 here, straight goes to the middle. The next 90 with the straight goes on the passenger side. Right with all of our good turbo inlet stuff. It's gonna sit like that a little bit. Now our longest hose, 290s, is gonna go in here. Like so. That's gonna come all the way over to our fuel regulator. This one's gonna be bent. So the one with the crazy angle on it, it goes to the driver's side, the rear part of the fuel rail. Comes down in here like so. How we want. Alright, like this. Here we go. Definitely turn these on with your fingers or you're gonna strip something. These are both 90s. One more time. Okay. A little button on top. Alright, so if you're still watching this video, which hopefully you are, we're gonna just try and make it a little simpler for you right now. Since it's kind of installed, we can describe exactly what's going on and what we just did. And as you can see on these things, it's a little bit of a nightmare when you look at it, and it can be a little overwhelming. So our bottom hose here comes into the back of the bottom or the back of the fuel regulator. That is your feed line. From your feed line, you have, it splits off, it comes up to here and down to this hose. This hose wraps around under here and hits your left bank. And the bottom hose on the regulator comes across and hits your right bank right here. And then your return lines, after it goes through both injectors, come out of each rail Y, come back in and up and feed back to the vehicle. This middle hose here is just a evap hose. So that's basically the pressure in your fuel tank. So the pressure in your fuel tank, they use that in certain situations when driving to eliminate vapor fumes going into the atmosphere, which feed back into your vehicle, but we don't care about that on this vehicle. So we will be figuring out a way to put a breather on this because you don't want to plug it. And with the tune, we're going to be able to eliminate the purging of that system. It's called the purge valve, where it enters into your intake and you burn those vapor fumes. But yeah, it's fairly ridiculous. These hoses are pretty stiff to turn and get to where you want, so just make sure you wiggle everything freely until everything's free before you start tightening stuff. There is a little double clamp here that holds these hoses like this, and certain fittings, these little fittings here, we tightened before we installed them. And we've did a little modifications to the fuel regulator, and you can, once it's in, you can always bend it a little bit, like that way and this way, just to help line. We bent it a bit that way so this wasn't rubbing so hard and it was easier to assemble. That's the end of episode 2. More fuel. 1080cc injector dynamic injectors installed in this baby. What the fuck? I've been saying 1080 the whole time. 1050cc injector dynamics in this baby. Episode 3. We're just leaving it like this for now because we gotta still remove our alternator, relocate our alternator. So next episode, you're gonna see us relocating our alternator. We're gonna be installing a new power steering pump since our ginormous turbo inlet is off. It gives us a lot more access, and this thing's squealing like a pig. But yeah, stay tuned for episode 3 on more fuel, more power for alternator relocation and the power steering pump replacement. And then on episode 4, we're going to be reassembling the intake manifold and making it look beautiful. And then on episode 5, we'll be swinging around with our brand new front mount intercooler. Hope you like this video. Like, subscribe, comment. We appreciate any feedback you have. Please keep on Netfix and building.